Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shred's Takes. I'm Mike Shredder. I'm joined by a fellow grad student friend of mine from California, Sam Faber. Sam, thank you so much for joining the show today. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, Mike. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely glad to have you on. I'm glad we were able to get this to happen. What Sam and I are going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the playoff series. So I've done this before with Andrew Deitzer, which, it's good to have another person in the program as well. I've done it also with Julian Epps a little bit as well. But it's going to be cool because we'll be talking about each series. And, there's obviously less of them now. So it's going to be, probably a little easier to kind of break things down. But Sam, I kind of wanted to start off with just kind of your initial thoughts. Let's just talk about the playoffs as a whole. And what have you been like? What are the things you've really liked about the playoffs so far?
Sure. Well, I think for one, I think we're starting to see, a shift in the NBA here. I think it's the first time in certainly my lifetime of watching basketball that we haven't had KD, LeBron, or Steph in the at least the conference semifinals. So we're seeing a change of the guard here, and it's really fun to be able to watch guys like Ant and like Jokic, Luka, Shea, all of these guys out of the West, and then the East, Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell. See these young guys, really take over the league and take control of their teams. So that's something personally that I've really enjoyed. And some really great matchups. I think we're seeing now, and really excited for both the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals here in a week or so.
So Knicks Pacers is kind of where I actually want to start the conversation, and that's primarily just because the last two games have been blowouts by 30 points. And
Yeah,
I think the headlines, which I'd love to hear where you're thinking is going to game six, but the headlines obviously is which is the bench from Indiana going to dominate? And I think two is who's going to play better between that Brunson and Halliburton matchup? Because when they played at Indiana, it was pretty even split between those guys. But when they played at Madison Square Garden, Brunson's been much better. What are you, from your vantage point, what do you think is the reason why the Knicks have a 3-2 lead? And, what are some things that you think Indiana needs to adjust to in order to win game six?
sure. I mean, I think what it really comes down to is Brunson being healthy and Brunson being able to put the team on his back. Because I mean, when Brunson's putting up 40, they're gonna typically win the game. So yeah, I think it starts and ends with Jalen Brunson. I think the guys like Josh Hart and Harvenstein and DiVincenzo, both all those guys have been fairly consistent. And I think you know what you're going to get out of Harvenstein and Hart every night. They're going to be hustling, giving you 48 minutes of energy, and I think you know it comes down to the scoring of Jalen Brunson and DiVincenzo, I think, as well for the Knicks. I think it really hurt them, obviously, to lose OG, which is, definitely going to be tough for them. I think not only one to finish out this series, but looking forward, even if they were to advance and likely play the Celtics, I think it's it's going to be tough without OG. Just the energy that he brings on the defensive end, his length, his size. Um, I think he was playing incredible until that unfortunate hamstring injury. So yeah, I think it really comes down to Brunson. As for the Pacers, I think Halliburton needs to step up and sort of take on that superstar role. I mean, if people claim he's top five point guard in the NBA, he's got to show it to us. I think that their role players have looked great. Siakam obviously is a star, and he's gotten it done in the playoffs before. So I think if he wants to be if he wants to be compared to Brunson and battle with Brunson, he's got to show it.
It's interesting because I've seen a bunch of breakdowns on this, and it's just with Jalen Brunson, they pulled up a stat. I mean, obviously his field goal percentage improved from last night against those guys, but Neesmith and McConnell have actually done a pretty decent job against him, and Andrew Nemhard has shot like almost 70% against. And I feel like Indiana continuously either allows that matchup to happen or allows switches to happen that put Andrew Nemhard. It's not saying Andrew Nemhard's not a good defender. It's
Yeah.
just Jalen Brunson's stronger. So the problem is, for how ever. Do you think that if you're the Pacers, do you throw a guy like TJ McConnell more on him, or do you think Neesmith is probably the best bet to try and slow down, one of the best players in the NBA right now?
Yeah, no, I loved what TJ McConnell has done on both ends of the floor. I mean, he is somewhat limited, in his bag. He gets to his spots though, and I think he's been serviceable on the offensive end. And then what he's done defensively, I mean, he is talk about a high motor guy. He is so just in your grill. Like I think Josh Hart called him a pest, and he truly is that. And I think you're not going to stop Jalen Brunson at the end of the day, but you can slow him down. And if you put TJ McConnell guarding him for 90 feet for 48 minutes, I think that's their best bet. So I'd love to see, TJ McConnell continue to get more minutes.
So shifting over to the second series, we had a Nuggets and T-Wolves, right? Which obviously was it's been an interesting series. I think to put it plainly, it's been an interesting series. Um, so I think from your standpoint, right? Obviously, there are I think a couple of things you probably take away. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about why Denver has found success in that Jokic Gobert matchup, and then also why they have found success potentially in making Anthony Edwards more uncomfortable on the offensive end than he was in the previous 4 games. So, love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, totally. Well, so starting off with the Rudy Gobert matchup, I mean, last night it was tough to watch at some points. I mean, he was getting absolutely cooked by Jokic, as you said. Jokic, best player in the world. It's it's hard to shut him down at all. But I think I think Rudy, they need to definitely throw some different looks at Jokic's way. I mean, I go back to that game too, where Rudy was out, and Nas being able to stay strong with Jokic, and then also sending more double teams, I think worked really well for the Timberwolves. So I'd like to see more of that in the next game or two. And yeah, I think also Jamal Murray has been a serious catalyst for the Nuggets offense. I mean, when he's going, I think he's easily top 5 point guard in the league. And he's really stepped up for them the last 3 games. And really opened it up for Jokic inside, and being able to play make and then make shots at a high level. So yeah, no, I really love what I'm seeing from the Nuggets. And to be honest, I think the Timberwolves are done for. I mean, I think they're just too young. And as for as for Ant, I mean, he just needs help. I mean, I love Ant. I love his game. He's just really struggling to get open looks. I think at this point they're sending doubles. He's struggling to get open looks. I think that Cat has been not great. Rudy's obviously not a huge factor on the offensive end. And I think I just don't think that they have enough right now to, to win this series. And I think they're gonna have to, go into this offseason really try to work things out. The one thing I will say though, they are a very young team, so I think they have a lot of room to grow. And I think Ant, as good as he is now, I think he can even get better in a lot of ways. I love McDaniels. I think Cat has been excellent at times. So I think the future is very bright for the Timberwolves, but I think this is the Nuggets' time right now.
It's funny because, when they were up 2-0, I don't think I don't know if you felt the same way, but I don't think people were saying, the T-Wolves don't have enough. I think they were saying, obviously, the series is over, but based on how
Mhm.
the dominance is. And, you got to give, like, what does that say about the Nuggets being able to go to Minnesota where they've been dominant, win 2 games, and then dominate at home? I mean, what does that say about them being able to do
I
that?
mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think it tells you that they're I think the best team in the league. They have been for the last year plus. I mean, it is truly remarkable when they are firing on all cylinders. I think they are the best team in the NBA. And some may say the Celtics or you know maybe the Thunder or Timberwolves, obviously. But I think the Nuggets when they have everything going for them. They are truly an unstoppable force. And yeah, I will like I thought that those watching those two first games and the absolute defensive masterpiece that the Timberwolves put on, sure, I thought they definitely had a shot to win, but I was not counting out the Nuggets. I mean, if you have Nikola Jokic on your side, you always have a shot. So yeah, I right now I think the Nuggets are my favorites in the league to win it all.
So obviously, I think that, those have been the series I think people are looking at and being like, okay, maybe they'll go 7 games. They've been great series. But a series that actually really took a quick turn was the OKC Dallas series with game 4,
Yeah.
where, Luka was terrible down the stretch. And, I think Luka's terrific, obviously, but yeah, is it injuries? Is it defense? I don't know, but he hasn't been very good in the series, and he really hasn't been great in the playoffs overall compared to what he usually has been like. From your standpoint, do you think with Luka, with his struggles, do you think he's pressing too much and that's why he's getting a lot of these turnovers and shooting bad percentages? Do you think it's Lou Dort and his defense? Do you think it's injuries? Like, do you think it's a combination of stuff? Why is Luka, who has been so dominant for so long, really struggling, especially in this series, to be able to really put a mark on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't discredit OKC's defense. I mean, I think they're really good on the defensive end. Um, I think it's really interesting what you said about pushing too hard because I do think that Luka can do that a lot. I mean, it's hard not to when you have the ball in your hand, 90% of the possessions. So yeah, I mean, I think realistically for the Mavs to be able to come back in the series or not even come back, just come through and win it. Luka is obviously gonna have to step up. I mean, if you look at the series contenders around the league, every team has a consistent superstar that's going to give you 30. I mean, you look across the way in OKC has Shea, who I believe is the most consistent player in the entire NBA. I mean, talk about just a stud who gets to his spots, make shots at such a high level. I mean, it's insane to see like someone who can, pull up on a dime and hit these fading high arcing shots over anyone and it's like it's automatic and absolutely love Shea, love his game. I think he was honestly snubbed for MVP this year. I really thought he should have had it. I love Jokic, don't get me wrong, but I think Shea, what he did with this young team and leading them is absolutely incredible. And yeah, I think Luka's going to need to be that guy. He's going to need to be able to give you a consistent 30 every night and shoot at a high level. Because really, what they've been relying on is PJ Washington, who's been incredible. I mean, he's looked like prime Clay back in the day. Like he's shooting at an incredibly high clip, and really stepping up for them. But you can't rely on PJ Washington to win you a series.
So I think another interesting thing to shift over to another series is the Celtics and the Cavs. And I know the Celtics are up 3-1 and things are looking good for them. But a lot of my Boston friends probably won't like me saying this, but I think they're incredibly vulnerable. And I think that the Cavs have not necessarily done great executing in late games because they've been in all these games except for game 1, where they could have
Mm-hmm.
definitely went back to Boston with a 2-2 series. But I think it's just
Yeah.
coaching is just, bigger staff's a good coach, but I think that they're not executing at a high level. What are your thoughts? Like again, what with Boston, do you think they're vulnerable? Do you think that, that maybe I'm just not seeing the series correctly? Like what exactly with the Celtics, talk about the good and the bad, but everyone considers them the favorite, obviously, them in Denver. Do you think they're playing like that, or do you think that they have some vulnerabilities that could get exposed?
I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, obviously. I think with as we've seen in this series, the Cavs, one not being at full strength, and two just not being, in my opinion, not a serious like contender out of the East and what the fight that they put up. Obviously, I think the Celtics have some worries, and I think honestly, on the offensive end, what it comes down to is Jason Tatum, I think at times has been able to show that he's like the true alpha dog, but on any given night, it's kind of a crapshoot, I think. Like you have some nights, Drew Holiday stepping up. Derek White's been excellent, which is great to see. I'm a big D White fan. I love his game. Um, he went to funny enough, he went to a D2 school in Colorado, very close to my school. So big fan of his and have a little allegiance for him there. And then yeah, Jaylen Brown obviously is sort of the second star there, but I feel going back to the point I made about Luka, I think you need a guy in the playoffs in these series like these that can get really tight. And if you're going down the stretch in 5 minutes and you need a guy to go get a bucket, I think you need to have it like clear alpha dog on the team. And I don't know if Jason Tatum is showing that right now. So I would like to see more from him. He had an excellent game. He also played well last game. So yeah, I think he's going to need to step up big time. And then we'll see when Porzingis gets back. He's obviously been key for them all year. And if you look at their competition, I mean, I think it's pretty clear they're going to win this series, and then they step into next series, and they're playing either an injured Knicks team or a young sort of unproven Pacers team. I still think that they're the clear favorites out of the East. I I'm very confident they will be playing in the finals, but who they play in the finals, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna have what it takes to get it done. So I think they're gonna need to prove something these next few games and really kind of light a fire under their ass and come into the finals and get it done.
So, you're from San Francisco, that's where you are now. And
Yeah.
the Warriors obviously had a interesting season, we can put it that way. And
Yeah, say the least.
there are obviously some reasons for that. High turnover rate, probably lack of size, lack of consistent role players in terms of like their production. Now, Podziemski and Kuminga definitely proved really good things. I think that, going forward, those guys are good, but obviously they just weren't good enough consistently on offense and defense to get it done from my vantage point. But obviously, I know that this is a team that you root for pretty heavily, and I don't know. So from your standpoint, what are the things the Warriors need to address, improve in order to keep the dynasty alive, actually, versus just saying they are going to and then end up in the 10th spot in the West again?
Yeah. No, it's a sad reality we're in. I've been spoiled with, championships most of my life. So yeah, it's it's a crucial turning point, I think, for the Warriors here. And I think it really dates back to the 2020 draft with Wiseman. And that decision, I think, kind of dug us a hole that we've been trying to get out of for the past couple of years. And obviously there was a championship in there, so I can't complain too much. But um, this weird limbo sort of between obviously the core of the dynasty with Clay, Draymond, and Steph, and then rebuilding for the future and trying to maintain this dominance while setting us up for future success and current success. So I think the team we had in 2022 was sort of the peak of that balance where Clay was able to play at a, relatively high level considering his injuries. Curry was obviously unreal. I mean, that playoff performance I think will go down as, one of the best ever. And Draymond and still I think Draymond is an elite defender. I think this year definitely he showed that. I mean, he's had all his off the court stuff, but still proved that he can defend at a very high level. So I think bouncing that with the young pieces that you had that we mentioned, like Kuminga, love Pods. Trace Jackson Jr. was excellent for us. And I like Moses Moody as well. I think we do have pieces like that that we can build around. But sadly, I think it's, time to part ways with Clay, which, kills me to say. He's my favorite Warrior of all time. I love him to death. He obviously I'll say top two shooter of all time. Um, and as for Draymond, I think it's tricky. I think he's such an emotional leader on the team, even though obviously isn't the best role model at times. I think he is still a defensive anchor for us. So I think it could go either way. I mean, I would I would love personally to keep him around, but I would definitely understand if they decide to move off of him. And then as for the other pieces, I mean, Wiggins has been just pretty bad the last 2 years, which is surprising. I know he's dealt with some stuff off the court, family issues and whatnot. So I understand, but he just really has not been the same player that he was in 2022 when he was, an all-star starter and absolute stud in the playoffs, locking down, Jason Tatum and really playing like a key, like pretty much third man role on that team. So a lot of question marks. I would definitely love us to go and get some size though. I think we need to bolster our our defensive presence. I think as you spoke to, we really struggled defensively at times. And having an aging Curry on the court really does not help when he has to guard guys like Jalen Brunson and Ja Morant night to night. So yeah, I think focusing on the defensive end, also looking to go and get shooters if we do move off of Clay, which is probably likely at this point. I think we need to go, acquire some good 3-and-D guys that can fill in. Obviously not going to play the same role as Clay, but at least be able to fill some of that gap that Clay leaves. So it's going to be a really interesting off season. I'm still hopeful. If you have Steph Curry on your team, you always got a shot. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens, and I'm excited.
Sam, I want to say thank you for coming on to the pod. Obviously, I loved hearing your thoughts about what's been going on in the playoffs, and obviously, as a Warriors fan, hearing kind of the perspective from a Warriors fan. So, obviously, I don't live out in California. I don't look at the Warriors at that closely. Besides, just obviously when they're a dynasty team, and just like other like kind of normal fans. So it's good to hear from like a you know in a sense like a more of an insider fan's perspective. So obviously, I really appreciate you coming onto the pod. It's always good chatting with you, and look forward to seeing you in New York this summer.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, and let's go Knicks. Let's get it done.
So for everybody listening, Mike Shredder here with Sam Faber. It's another episode of Shreds Takes. Again, like I said, we have episodes always coming out weekly, so stay tuned for that. And appreciate you guys listening in. And Sam's socials will be on the bottom. Give him a follow. And obviously, I really appreciate Sam coming on. So thank you guys for everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys soon.